Hello everyone, this week we'll be talking about mobile device forensics, and if you guys are interested in reading further, you can read chapter number 12 in the course book. So the outline is as following. We will be first talking about the mobile devices, what the devices are, what are the different locations in which a mobile phone can store data, what are the different forms of information, or you can say artifacts that we can collect from a mobile phone. And lastly, we'll be talking about what are the different ways of examining or performing forensic analysis on a mobile phone. So why do we need it? Because the simple answer is that nowadays mobile phones are essential part of our everyday life, and it is not, like early 2000s where a very limited number of people had mobile phones. Now you will see mobile phones being used by people of all ages, from children to elderly. They all use mobile phone for different purposes. We use it for social media, we use it for communication, for watching, like for entertainment purposes, for business purposes, and so on. So the number of mobile users is increasing every day, and also the involvement of mobile phone in our life is also increasing. And most of the times, mobile phones can help us in investigating a lot of cyber crimes, or you can say other crimes such as kidnapping, ransom, and so on as well. So now a question might come in your mind that what data we can recover from a cell phone. So I want you to pause the video for a minute and just list down all the possible location or all the possible data artifacts that you can think of extracting from a mobile phone. So let's observe them. So first of all, from a mobile phone, you can get all the call logs like incoming, outgoing, missed calls, everything like all sort of communications, voice communications that a person did from a mobile phone. We can extract it from the device. Similarly, all the SMS or MMS messages, emails, instant messages, or any other sort of communication, WhatsApp messages, or say like, messages using Messenger on Facebook, on Instagram, and so on. So all the connectivity or communication that a person do from the mobile phone can be retrieved from that. Similarly, we can also get the browsing history. Like, if we explore the mobile browsers, we will get the web pages that the user has visited. So that could be another piece of evidence or important information. Then we can get personal details or personal, user related data as well, such as the photos, videos, music files, audio recordings, or any other like, form of like data such as PDF files, text files, and so on. So all of these files, all of this user related data can be extracted. Similarly, we can get all the social media accounts of a person. So if a person is using, say, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on, all of those applications will be installed on the PC, and there is a very high likely chance that we can extract user related details from those applications. Another thing is we can also, like most of us, we use mobile phones for recording, for making videos. So all the user recorded videos and audios, they can be retrieved from the mobile phone as well. Similarly, your banking information. Nowadays, even I use a lot of mobile banking apps on my mobile phone. So my banking information can be retrieved from from the mobile phone. Another cool aspect, or you can say a usage of mobile phone, is nowadays like some car companies, they provide you applications that you can install on your mobile phone, and using that application you can start the car, turn off the car, open it, locate it, and all other features. So the features, or you can say the data that we can extract from a mobile phone is very vast. The list can, go on and on. So what are the challenges in mobile forensics? So the first challenge that you might face in mobile forensics is that mobile phone is considered as the property of a person who is holding a mobile phone. So even if I, steal a phone and I'm holding the phone in my hand, in terms of law, that phone will be considered my property unless the police or, law enforcement agencies proves otherwise. So for example, if I'm holding a phone, it will be considered my property, and police cannot just come and say, like this phone is not yours and we need to get it, or like you need to hand this phone over to us. So they have to prove it, with some way, maybe in court of law or some other way, that I am not the rightful owner. The other challenge, a legal challenge or aspect of mobile phone forensics, is that a mobile phone is considered like a closed container. So the same way that you cannot go and search somebody's home without a warrant, Similarly, you cannot search somebody's mobile phone without a warrant as well. So, a law enforcement agencies, even when they arrest you, they can take or confiscate your mobile phone, but they are not allowed, or they cannot, just randomly start going through your phone without having the proper warrant or without having the proper authorization. Because if they do so, it will be, like a violation of the Fourth Amendment. So all the time, whenever police officers or law enforcement agencies they acquire the phone, they put it or write it off as a forensic artifact, or you can say piece of evidence. But in order to go through it, and get some information out of it, they would need to get a proper warrant from a court, and after that they can start exploring or looking inside the phone to get some information out of it. The other side are the legal challenges. So legal challenges are covered. The next is the technical aspects. So there are a lot of technical challenges as well in mobile phone forensics. So the first one is, nowadays we have hundreds of different mobile phone manufacturers that are creating new versions, or you can say new models every year. So the amount of mobile phones or the different type of mobile phones is like increasing every day. There is no single standard, when it comes to like storing the data. Like each mobile phone manufacturer has its own file system or operating system, and the way they store the data is also different. You can see, like Apple has its own iOS or operating system. Google has their own Android. So similarly, like, there are a lot of other companies like Samsung, OnePlus, and I can name many more. All of these companies, they use basically some version of Android. Like they have the basic Android, and on top of that they do some modifications to improve it for their technology. So you see, all of these different operating systems, the way they store the data on the device is very different. Similarly, like, even if we see same device, for example, iPhone, the latest iPhone 15 will be, there's a chance that the iOS will be very different as compared to, say, iPhone 10 or iPhone 11. So all of these operating systems, they also keep on changing every day. So even if you have iOS version, there is a chance that in different iOS versions, there are additions or there are changes. Another big technical challenge is the amount of data storage nowadays that is allowed, or you are able to store in mobile phones, is also very large. So if you, like, think of, say, 10 years in the past, mobile phones had very limited memory. Maybe, like, they used to have 6 GBs, 12 GBs at max, and you had like memory cards of very small sizes as well. But nowadays, all the mobile phones, the basic ones, even they come with 64 GB storage, or 128 GB storage. And on top of that, you can add or insert the SD card. And now we also have cloud storage. So with cloud storage, technically speaking, your the storage capacity becomes, unlimited, and you can store or get as much cloud storage as possible. So the amount of data that you might have to, analyze when it comes to mobile phones is also continuously changing. So that can also, like, be a very difficult challenge to overcome. For example, you went to investigate a mobile phone, or thinking that it is, 64 GB, so I will just be needing hard drives equal to 64 GB to get the data out of it. But later on you find, there's a SD card installed on the mobile phone, which is like, say, 1 TB or 2 TBs, and also the user is using cloud service in order to store the data, and the cloud is also a couple of TBs on top of that. So now a question might come, okay, with all these legal challenges, technical challenges, are there any ways or guidelines that we need to follow when it comes to mobile forensics? And the answer is yes. So NIST has like guidelines to, the NIST is a government organization that provides forensic guidelines on how to investigate a mobile phone. And if you guys are interested, you can go over this link. It is a PDF document, I think 80 or 90-page document, which list all the steps or all the, you can say, processes that you have to follow in order to accurately do the forensic analysis of mobile phones. Now let's talk about the, like, the hardware of the mobile phone, that what different things are there inside a mobile phone. So if we talk about a mobile phone, a simple mobile phone or a smartphone, tablet, smartwatch, like, or any, you can say, smart home device, or IoT device, all of them have the same architecture or the basic architecture. And that is that all of them, they will have a microprocessor to, process the data. They will have a ROM to store the basic essential of, of the operating system. They will have a random access memory, a RAM. All of them will have a digital signal processor, because all of them, like need to process that. They will process the calls and all that. They will have a radio module. So, we need to, or the mobile phones, or say smart home devices or tablets, if they need to connect to any connectivity, whether it's Wi-Fi or, Bluetooth or the cellular service, they will need a radio module to do that. They all will have a microphone and a speaker for the communication, and some hardware interfaces, such as, some might have buttons, some might have touch screen. You will have other, input output features as well, such as cameras, GPS locations, display, and so on. So in mobile phones, apart from, like the actual memory that is there, the memory chip that is there on the chip itself, you can also add SD cards, or, like external storage into the mobile phone as well, and that can increase the storage capacity by, like a significant margin. Lastly, you can also, all of these devices, they can also connect to other devices using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, or, like some other form of signaling. So this is all the hardware stuff. Now let's talk about the software. So all of the mobile phones, or you can say smart home devices, tablets that you see, they all run an operating system. So operating system is needed in order to do, or in order to run any communication device or any digital device. So there are different versions, or you can say different types of operating systems that you might see in mobile phones. So the basic or most popular are two. The first one is iOS, that is like default operating system of all the Apple devices, and then you have Google OS, or you can also call it Android. So Google has the, one of the purest forms of Android, but all other companies such as Samsung, OnePlus, and Sony, they all have their own, like upgrades, or you can say some additions on top of the Android system, and they use their own version. Apart from that, we like, I remember Windows also launched Windows mobiles, I think like at least 10 years ago, and they used Windows operating system on the mobile phones. Lastly, if you guys remember, like back in early 2000s, BlackBerry was very famous, and they had their own RIM OS. So the operating system, a mobile phone is similar to a computer. It will have an operating system, a file system, and all the other essential software, or you can say uh, other components that are necessary in order to communicate with the hardware. So for storage, like all the mobile phones nowadays, they have the capability of inserting an external card. So there are different versions of external cards that you can use. So we have compact flash cards, multimedia cards, or MMCs, and the very common or most known secure digital cards, or the SD cards. So SD cards, they, initially they were like 1 GB, 2 GB max, but nowadays you can, find even SD cards in TBs. And also the price of SD cards is, like significantly reducing as we go on. And nowadays you will see a lot of mobile phones using these SD cards in order to enhance or increase the storage. Another form of card that you might see in mobile phone is the SIM card. So nowadays, more and more mobile phones are shifting towards eSIMs. So we will not be focusing on eSIMs in this chapter. We will be talking mainly about the physical SIM cards that you see in your phones. So for that, what is a SIM card? A SIM card is basically a subscriber identity module. So in terms of forensics, or in terms of say networking, a mobile phone is considered, a mobile station, and it should have a SIM card. So any device or any physical device, if you have a mobile phone and you don't insert the SIM card in it, from the networking term, it will not be considered a mobile station. It will just be a device, or just be a tablet. So SIM card has multiple, components that we will discuss in later slides. On top of that, it also has different type of, you can say, identifiers or IDs that are used to identify the unique user on the cellular network, as well as to identify, or you can say, identify the individual SIM card itself. So there are multiple type of IDs that are used or associated with the SIM card, and we will look them one by one. SIM cards come in different versions or different sizes. So you might have seen one of these at least, the standard version, micro and the nano. So the main difference is just in size. Apart from that, the functioning and the components, all of them are same. But depending on your mobile phone model or, manufacturer model or what type of mobile phone it is, you might see one of these three mobile SIM card types. Now, when it comes to SIM cards, there are different ways with which you can get a SIM card. One is postpaid, one is prepaid. On top of that, like if you are visiting a country, you can just buy a local SIM from there, use it for some time, make calls, like receive messages, dump it, and come back to your home country. So when it comes to forensic investigation, these things can complicate your case. So a user, like can have one SIM on a phone, or maybe two SIMs, or the user is just juggling through a multiple, like say 5 or 6 SIMs at different times. So because of that, because of the ease with which you can dispose a SIM and insert a new one or get a new one, it becomes, or it complicates the forensic investigation. So when we are talking about mobile phone forensic investigations, we want to make sure that if a phone or if a user is using two SIMs, we need to get the data, or get the information out of both of SIMs. If the phone only allows, or if the user is only using one SIM, we need to make sure that we have the data out of it. So when it comes to forensic investigation, you need to make sure that you get all the SIMs or data from all the SIMs that any suspect is suspected of using. So if you think like the person was using 10 SIMs, you have to get all the data from all those 10 SIMs. Otherwise, your data will be considered incomplete. So there are multiple unique IDs, or you can say serial numbers, that are associated with the SIM card. The two are very common. The first one is called ICC ID, and the second one is called IMSI ID. So what is the ICC ID? So ICC ID is an ID assigned to the individual SIM card. So if you guys flip your SIM card, you will see a number on the back, and that number is the ICC ID. Now, what is the purpose of ICC ID? ICC ID basically registers the SIM card to the cellular network. So every time, like you turn on your phone and you have a SIM card inserted, your phone will send some messages to the cellular network, to the tower with which it is connected, and it will send these IDs like ICC ID and IMS ID to the cellular network. Based on by reading these IDs, the cellular network or the tower will authenticate you, yet that yes, this is a valid SIM that is issued by our company, and it will register you or register your SIM on the network. The other ID, IMSI ID, is a unique ID that is used to identify an individual. So these are two different components, different IDs. The ICC ID is for the SIM card, like each SIM card will have a unique ICC ID. And then we have a IMSI ID that will be used to authenticate the user. So for example, the IMSI ID, it's a 15-digit long number, and it consists of three parts. So the first part is your mobile country code. The second part is your mobile network code. And the third part is your mobile subscriber identification number. So in a phone number, you see like you first have your country code. So that will be part of IMSI. Then you have the organization or the cellular company code. So maybe, if you have T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T, so they will be some allowed some code over there. And lastly will be your number. That will be the unique number that is assigned to you, say on T-Mobile's network or on AT&T's network. So when you turn on your mobile phone send these IDs, both ICC and IMSI, to register itself and you on the cellular network company's tower. And from that point onwards, once it's registered, it keeps on talking to that or receiving signals from that cellular tower. And when you move from one location to another, for example, right now I'm in university, so my phone is connected to the nearest T-Mobile tower that is providing service in this area, Ellendale area. If I go to say my home, or like if I go to some other city, I will be removing connection from one tower, and as I go out of its reach, I will create a new connection with a new cellular tower. So every time I create a connection, or every time I move from one location to another, my phone will send these two signals, or these two IDs, ICC ID and IMSI ID, to the cellular network and register itself. So as my phone is continuously registering, so you can like guess it from from our discussion, that just if I just like focus on these two things, ICC ID and IMSI ID, and I just get the data from the cellular tower, that what different ICC IDs or IMSI IDs are connected to it, I can track the location or movement of a person. All right. So next, we can also have passwords on SIM card. So there are two different type of passwords that you can see when it comes to mobile phone forensics. The first are the passwords that are implemented on the individual SIM card, and the second one are the one that are implemented on the mobile phone. So let's look at the SIM card ones first. So each SIM card, you can enable a password on the SIM card, and that password is called PIN, or personal identifier code. So pin is up to user. User can select any pin that it wants, and with that, if the pin is enabled, then every time like you insert a SIM from one phone to another, it will ask you to give the pin. So the pin will be like a must in order to change from one SIM to another. So a pin is a password that is only known by the individual or the user. The mobile company doesn't know your pin. All right. So if you want to, like change mobile SIMs from one SIM to another, from one mobile to another, the next time you start it, your SIM will might ask for the PIN password, will ask you to enter the PIN. So when you enter the PIN, generally you are given 3 tries. So if you guess the wrong password, like 3 times, your SIM will automatically block for some certain time. And if you want to recover that, or if you want to unblock your SIM, the best thing to do is, or you can say, there is a key for that, and that key is called PUC. So PUC is basically pin unblocking key. So if you somehow enter wrong pin 3 times, your SIM will be blocked. Now in order to unlock it, you will need PUC. Where to find PUC? PUC is basically assigned by the cellular network. So when you buy the SIM card, you might see like on the packaging, that you will see that the PUC number is written on the SIM card packaging. So it is assigned by the cellular network provider or the service provider, and it is used to unlock the SIMs that have been blocked by wrong pins. So another thing, similar to PIN card, pucks also have, a limited tries. So if you try the wrong puck, or if you enter the wrong puck number, generally 10 times, after that, your SIM will be blocked permanently. So when it comes to blocking, like you can guess the PIN code if you forget about it, but don't do that with puck, because after, 10 tries, your SIM will be disabled, and then you will have to get a new SIM card. So to summarize this slide, there are two different passwords or numbers that are there to you can say enable or to activate password protection on SIM card. The first one is your personal number, which is we call PIN, personal identifier code. You can set whatever PIN you want, and that will only be known to the user. For pin, you have 3 tries. If you guess the pin wrong 3 times, the SIM will be blocked temporarily. And to unblock it, we use another number which is called PUC. PUC will be provided by the mobile phone company or cellular company, and it is known by them. And for PUC, you also have 10 tries. If you enter the wrong PUC 10 times, then your SIM will be permanently blocked. So this might be a challenge, like for forensic analysis, that you have confiscated a SIM card from a suspect, but that SIM card requires a PIN code. So either you can guess the PIN code 3 times and hope that like you are able to unlock the SIM. Otherwise, you can try to see or find the packaging with which in which the SIM card came in, and try to see if you can find the PUC number, like at suspect's home or office, or on his desk, and so on. So the other form of password that you might see is the password on the phone. So this is different from, the password like facial recognition or other form of passwords that we use to unlock the phone. So there are two basic set of password. The one are basically, the first one is that you generally use. So if your phone is locked and you want to see your messages or calls, you will have to unlock it. So that is one password. This password, the other password is called keyboard lock or handset password. What is it? Sometimes you can enable a second password on the mobile phone itself. So every time you power on the mobile phone, it will ask you for a password. If you provide the password, then it will complete the booting process. Otherwise, it will be still in the you can say hibernation state, or the mobile phone will not turn on or will not, give you the proper interface to interact with. So this password, again, user can set both of them, whatever they want. And if the phone is encrypted or it has a password, then you either will have to break the password yourself, guess the password, or the third option is you can ask the suspect, or the person from which you confiscated the mobile phone, to give you the password. Now remember that, you cannot force them to give them the password, to give you the password. You can just request, or try social engineering or any other method to make sure that you get the password. Otherwise, you will have to break it yourself. Service providers. Now let's talk about what are the different sources of evidences, that you can have or that you have on the mobile phones. So the first one is the device handset memory. So all of the mobile phones that you see, they come up with a built-in memory. So 64 GB, 128, 256, depending on the handset, you have different version or different sizes of memory. Then we have the SIM card itself. So as I mentioned last time, the SIM card itself can store some information, such as they can store some messages, they can store some contacts, they can store some call logs, and they can also store some other information, such as like we covered. Yeah, these are the ones. The next thing is removable media. So most of the phones now, they have the ability, or they provide you the option to add in a SD card for extra storage. So if a phone has that option, then and the SD card will also contain evidence. For example, you can find videos, photos, audio files, and so on the SD card. Then we have the phone documentation. So what is phone documentation? It would mean like, all the packaging that comes with the phone. So phone box, or the box in which the phone comes, you will most of the time find the IMEI number on it. Similarly, the packaging of SIM card can help you guys identify the puck number, because sometimes it is written on the, on the box. Similar to that, we can also see the billing information. So if you are like, collecting data from a suspect, try to see if there are some billing documents, because most of the time they will help you in figuring out who's the owner or who's the actual subscriber of that particular SIM card. So it is very possible that, some suspect is using a SIM card that is not registered on their name, and they are like basically framing or using somebody else's identity in order to get the SIM card. Next, we have the cellular network, or the information that we can retrieve from the network service provider or the SIM service provider. So most of the times, like whenever you are using phone, as I mentioned last time, your phone is always connected to one of the towers or cellular towers, and the phone can, or the third, like the mobile phone providers or the service providers, they have access to your call logs. They don't look into them individually, but they do have access to the call logs, like all the incoming and outgoing calls on your mobile phone, the incoming and outgoing messages, location information, like where were you last located, or to which tower you last synced with or connected with, and so on. Similarly, like we can also get information about the owner of the mobile, or owner of the or the subscriber of the SIM card. So again, like looking at the packaging, looking at the phone, you can verify, or you can find out that who's the actual rightful owner of the mobile phone, and who's the actual subscriber of the SIM card that the mobile is using. Next, we have computers. Most of the time, like, we plug in our phone to our computer in order to transfer data, in order to make backups, in order to, transfer files like such as photos from a trip and so on. So if a user, like when you go to confiscate the mobile phone, or you are doing like, a searching process, looking for evidences, also see if the user is, if the user might have connected the phone to any computer. So if you see some data cable lying around on the table or in the room, that would mean that the user might have used it to connect the phone with some PC. Then we would have to look into that PC as well and investigate that PC or laptop or whatever device the accused or the suspect might have used. We will have to look into that as well for gathering the evidence. Lastly, nowadays, most of the mobile phones, they have the capability, or they provide you the cloud storage. And this is also becoming, like more preferred way as compared to the SD card these days. So if a phone is connected to a cloud, for example, iPhone provides you iCloud. Similarly, Google provides you Google Drive, and for all the Android devices. So if a phone is, using any of these cloud services, then we will have to, look into the data that is on the cloud as well to do the proper investigation for that particular case. So the first is the handset memory or the phone memory. So what can we retrieve from there? So all the phones, they have like, ROMs, they have hard drives to store data. The data that they store are basically the operating system. So for example, iOS, Android, or whatever other operating system the phone is using, that information will be there. Similarly, all the applications that a phone is running, all the, like games or other applications that you download, their entire information, including the executable, other user data, everything will be there on the handset memory. We can also have user data. So, phone numbers, text messages, pictures, audio files, video files, any other, like messages that the user might have sent, emails, everything will be there on the phone memory. So this is like when it comes to, doing investigation, phone memory is one of the most data rich, or you can say evidence rich artifact that you can explore. Next, we have the SIM card. So most of the SIM cards, like actually all of them, they provide you some very basic memory storage. They provide that facility, and you can generally store some context over there. So have you guys like done that practically, like stored some context on the SIM card? So when you store a contact on the phone, sometimes in at least in the older version, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, the phone would ask you if you want to store this contact on the phone memory or the SIM card. So the contacts that you store on the SIM card, they like if you plug if you take out your SIM card and plug it in some other phone, those contacts will automatically go there with the SIM card. So SIM card provides you the opportunity, or gives you the ability to store some, like say 20 or 30 contact numbers, or phone book entries. It also stores text messages. So again, similar to the phone book, you might have like 20 or 30 text messages that you can save on the SIM card. The SIM card, all of them, they have their serial numbers. So ICCID and the other ISMI ID that we talked about in the previous slides, these are specific to the SIM card itself, and they basically are your registration on the cellular company's network. So that information is also there. Last, cell tower. So every time you move around, for example, you are here in university, you are connected to your mobile service provider's tower that serves this area. You go to your home, like all the way, like during your path, you will be disconnected from one tower and connected to another. So this way, whatever these the cellular tower your mobile is currently connected at, or last connected, will be stored in the SIM card as well. So all of this data can be retrieved from the SIM card. So if you are looking for call logs or something, like some contacts, whether the two people were in contact or not, it is a good idea to check the data on the SIM card for these things. Now, with SIM cards, it is, it can get complicated. So as I mentioned last time, most of the phones, they have dual SIM. So it is possible that, while you are confiscating the SIM cards, you just take out the primary SIM. You don't think about getting the secondary SIM. So always check the phone specs. If it provides the dual SIM card opportunity or it, like slots, then try to get the data or try to take out both of those SIMs. The next thing is SIM cards. Like, there are different types of SIM cards. So if you guys have seen nano SIM cards, they are very small. So it is very possible that the user might be, containing or carrying multiple SIM cards, but you only confiscate one or two and the other are hidden. So try to make sure when you are collecting the evidence, you collect all the SIM cards, related to that particular case. Another case is like nowadays, some of the, like smart home devices or say tablets and iPads and these devices, they also have the ability, some of them, that you can plug in a SIM card in them. So oftentimes it is ignored that, if you see a tablet, you might think that, oh, it might not be having a SIM card, but it might have. So always check the devices. Like if you see any electronic device, no matter it's a tablet, it's a phone, it's a smart home device, just try to make sure to check it thoroughly and see if there is any SIM card over there or not. Then the third piece of evidence or location is the SD cards. So we all know SD cards, they can store a lot of information, personal information like your images, like your videos, the applications that you store and so on. So these SD cards nowadays, they can go up to terabytes. So when I was young, I was like, we were talking about MBs, 128 MB, 256 MB, or 1 GB was like, the biggest one. But nowadays, like these SD cards, they like 128 or 256 is the common, right? So there can be a lot of information or artifacts that you can recover from the SD card. So to make sure whenever you are confiscating a phone or whenever you are like, searching for evidence like on a suspect's location, try to make sure, check thoroughly that if there is any SD card lying on the table or in the room, try to collect it and add it into the list of evidences. Next, we have documentation. So documentation can be of multiple types. So your phone bills, your manuals that come in with the phone or with the SIM card, the softwares, that you are using, for example, for those of you guys that use Apple. So you have like an application that you have to install on your PC. It has documentation like how to operate, what are the different options. So all your software related documentation is important. The SIM card holder or the SIM card packaging in which the SIM card arrives, that would contain important information such as the the SIM card serial number as well as the phone number that SIM card will be using, and also the PUC number. And lastly, the original packaging of the phone can give you the IMEI number, which is very important when it comes to mobile forensics because each phone has an individual IMEI number and it is unique to one phone. So it is very important for solving cases of like, stolen mobile phones. So if there is any, whenever you try to report a stolen mobile phone, always the police will ask you for the IMEI number. So all this information can be extracted or, taken out from these packaging or these documents that you might think are, irrelevant or might not be that important in everyday life, but for forensics, they are important. Next, we have the cellular tower. So as I mentioned earlier, the cellular tower, we are always connected, a phone it will be always connected to one cellular tower. And that cellular tower will get the information such as like who's the user, because if you guys remember, like the SIM card has a couple of IDs that we discussed in the previous lecture, and those IDs are used to identify any subscriber on the cellular network. So the user or the subscriber information, call records, like all the incoming, outgoing calls, they can be stored. That information is logged by your cellular provider or service provider. Similarly, location information. So it is very handy when we are talking about cases about missing persons or say, kidnapping cases. That where was the last location or, like the last area in which the suspect or the victim was last seen. So how the police investigate that? They just do the geofencing. So they just pick up all the cellular networks data to which the user might have connected the last time. And using those cellular towers, they create a geofence or a piece of area on map and then try to investigate in that piece of area or in that particular inside that geofence. Lastly, You can have some backup data as well on cellular, towers. So all your logs, cellular towers, they have limited memory as well. So sometime they're gonna run out of memory, or maybe the organization has some kind of backup policy that backup all the call logs at the end of the day or something like that. So not only the cellular tower, but also the backup, or you can say the storage of the network service provider, or your phone service provider will also have important data. Next, we have people associated with the device. So as I mentioned earlier, that a mobile phone is very unique case. So the person who is holding the mobile phone is the owner of the mobile phone, unless you prove it wrong, or unless you prove that somebody else is the owner. So for that, like whenever we are talking about or doing investigation related to mobile phones, we need to always ask questions, as many questions as possible, to the people, to the person who's holding the phone, or to the people who might know about the real owner. So whenever you are investigating, like there will be an interview process where you will be trying to get information from the suspect or from the people that are connected to the suspect. So try to ask questions like, what is the phone number? So if I'm holding this mobile phone and I don't know what is the phone number on this, there is a very high chance that, I'm not the rightful owner, right? So ask these questions like, who pays the bill? That will give you the information about the real owner or the subscriber. Ask like questions about passwords or passcodes. So again, we cannot force anybody to give us password. We can just ask them. If they give us willingly, then there is no hindrance or no penalty. As If we think about the Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendment, asking the suspect about the password doesn't violate any of those amendments. So ask as many questions like as possible related to the phone, related to the SIM card, who's the owner of the phone, who pays the bill, what is the phone number, what is the service provider's name, and so on. And that will help you in identifying whether somebody is the actual owner of the mobile phone, or they simply stole it from someone else, or got it from some other place. So computer associated with the phone. So as we mentioned earlier in this lecture, all the time, like most of the time, all of us have used this facility or this feature that we back up our data, maybe, photos from last trip, or if there are some important documents from phone to your computer. So there are multiple ways. If you talk about the SD cards, there were SD card readers that are like separate devices that a person might use, or they can also use the cable or the data cable that comes with the phone. So try to make sure, if you see the evidences, like if you are investigating some person and on their table you see a SD card reader, that would mean they at some time they have used this SD card reader to transfer the data on the computer. So then you will have to investigate the computer of that person as well. So with all this, different locations or areas from where we can extract the evidence or collect the evidence, let's talk about the whole process that you need to follow when we are collecting or when we are forensic investigating a mobile phone. So we'll talk about what are the guidelines to do that, and also what are the different methods in which you can collect the data. So first of all, the most important step is that you need to secure the phone. So I will talk in detail like what does it mean and why it is important. But the idea is that from the moment that we confiscate or get the mobile phone as evidence, we want to make sure that there is no communication whatsoever with that device anymore. So there are multiple ways to do that, and there are multiple consequences if we don't do that as well. So we'll discuss that in detail. The next thing is ask for the information. So, from the person or the accused from which you confiscate the mobile phone, ask them all the questions that we discussed in the previous slide, that what is the number of this phone? Is there what is the service provider's name, who pays the bills, all of those things that can help you in identifying the rightful owner. The next thing is we have to seize all the related hardware, for example, the data card reader, or, the data cable, SD cards, all of those. And we also have to confiscate all the documentation as well. So if you see mobile phone box or the SIM packaging, mobile phone bills, anything related to that phone, you have to collect it or you have to confiscate it and add it into your evidence list. Next, we have the transportation and storage. So unlike computers, where if you want to transfer a computer, you can just block the Wi-Fi on the computer and then just transfer it from one place to another, right? But with mobile phones, since they can continuously be connected to one of the networks or one of the cellular towers, we have to make sure that while we are transferring a phone from one place to another, it is not connected to any of the towers, or it is not connected to any other entity via any type of network. It could be Bluetooth, it could be Wi-Fi, it could be like your cellular network. So we want to prevent all kind of communications with the mobile phone. The other thing is mobile phones, like sometimes while you are transferring them, they can run out of battery, right? And they can die down. So if a mobile phone dies down, there are some issues that we will discuss shortly. And lastly, we have to make sure that whoever is performing the analysis on the mobile phone is qualified. So if you hand the phone to somebody who is not familiar with forensics, there is a very high likely chance that they will mess up with they will not know about these processes or these guidelines, and they can mess up with your evidence. And also don't forget to make a chain of custody document. So the moment you get all the evidence, you have to list it down and then maintain a chain of custody document throughout your investigation. So the first step, securing the phone. So if the phone is off, we have to leave it that way. If the phone is on, we have to leave it that way, or we have to preserve its state. So no matter in which state the phone is, if it is off, keep it off. If it is on, try to keep it on. So what are the issues? The issues are like if the phone is off and you turn it on, there is a very high likely chance that when the phone turns on, some of its data can be overwritten. For example, some metadata about dates can be overwritten. Similarly, the last tower that to which this phone was connected will be updated, right? So for example, you confiscate a phone that was off from GVSU campus. So the last cell tower with which this phone has connected to will be the one near GVSU. And then you go to your office, maybe say in Chicago, and you turn it on. Now this information, the last connected tower, will be updated. So you will lose some geolocation information or the location information about the phone. So try to make sure that in whichever state the phone is, that you should keep it in that particular state. Now, if the phone is on, our biggest threat is that somebody else might connect to this phone and might say maybe send some kill message, or maybe there is a malware inside the phone that the third party or the accused can just run or trigger from the network. So we have to make sure that there is no communication whatsoever with the phone if it is on, and also make sure that if it is on, it shouldn't be turned off, or it shouldn't die from the battery storage, right? So we have to make sure that the battery doesn't run out as well. So while we are transferring, we will need to plug in the charger and try to make sure the phone is always on. The other thing is sometimes the data or some evidence can be seen on the phone as well. So not on my mobile phone, but sometimes you can see, people, especially the elderly that are not, that tech savvy or don't remember the passwords, they will just take a screenshot of their passwords and keep it on the phone. So whatever your screensaver is, sometimes you can get information from there. Another thing is you might have seen that, all the messages and the calls that you get, sometimes you just get the notification on your mobile phone without even unlocking it, right? So just see, try to see on the screen of the phone, just, maybe just press the button once and see what type of, if there is any information there about a call from somebody or a message from somebody or any other notification from any of the apps. So whatever is on the phone display, the time that you confiscate, make sure you take a picture of it or create notes so you can, later on use that information for your analysis. Now, if the phone stays connected with the network, what are the consequences? Or if the phone stays on, what are the consequences? So the first thing is location or cell tower. So if my phone is on, as I mentioned earlier, if I move it from the suspect location to my lab or my office where I will be doing the analysis on that phone, all the towers, throughout this area to which this phone will connect, they will update some location, or, they will update some information about location on the cellular end, mobile service providers end, as well as on the SIM card as well. So while you are moving, even though you are not doing anything, but you are still like, messing up with the evidence, updating or overwriting the evidence. Another thing is your SIM cards or your phones, they store all the incoming calls, like call logs, incoming, outgoing, missed calls. They also store your messages as well. So it is very possible that, the phone is running out of the memory, and maybe it is just, like it just stores 100 messages or 100 last 100 phone calls or phone records. So every time there is a new message or there is a new call, the oldest entry will be updated or it will be removed. So it is very possible that if the phone is connected to the network, and it only stores say 100 call logs, the suspect's friend or even the suspect can just, send you guys or like do 100 missed calls, and it will wipe out all the older data that was stored on the machine or on the phone. Similarly, it is also true for the text messages as well. Whenever there is a limited memory on the SIM card as well as on the mobile phone itself, every time it runs out of the memory, it will delete the oldest messages and store it the new ones or update the new ones. And lastly, it is also possible that there is some malware or some other application installed on this phone that you can trigger or start remotely, and that application or that malware might even like wipe out everything on the phone as well. So there is a chance of the skill signal that the suspect can send to wipe out the data. So that's why we need to make sure that there is no connectivity with the phone whatsoever. The next thing is preventing access to the network. So the best way, not the best way, but the first way to prevent the connectivity is to just turn off the mobile. But there are some issues that we discussed, in the previous slides, that what can go wrong if you turn off the phone. But even if you want to do that, you have two different options, right? You can either pull out the battery, or you can just turn off the phone by, shutting it down. So both of them have their own issues. The next thing is all these phones, all the cellular tower or connectivity that we have, it is in a fixed range, generally from 1600 megahertz to 1800 megahertz. So if we just block the radio frequency around the phone, or maybe you can think of it as creating a virtual bubble around, or a container around your phone, in which you are just blocking all the radio waves, you can make sure, or you can ensure that the phone doesn't communicate with anything, even if it is turned on. The next thing is, like, now most of the phones, they come up with this feature of aeroplane mode. So you can just put the phone on aeroplane mode, and it just disconnects all connectivity ways or paths. It turns off your Wi-Fi, it turns off your network connectivity, it turns off your Bluetooth and everything else. We also have jammers. So jammers are basically devices that block the radio frequency. So in US, it is illegal for civilians to have radio jammers, but law enforcement agencies, they can use them. The last thing is, we can also if there is an opportunity, like depending on the case, we can request the network service provider to take this phone out of their network. What will happen in that case is, they can disable your SIM card, and now no matter if the SIM card is there or if the phone is on, it will not be receiving any signals from the network service providers. One thing that you might see here is blocking using the Faraday bags. So these are special equipment, special devices. So it is like a fabric that blocks the radio frequency. So Faraday bags, you can see containers or bags or small boxes that are made with that material that automatically blocks the radio frequency. So you can use that as well if you don't want to use the radio signal jamming devices. All right, so now for turning off the phone, there are two ways, right? We can either turn off the phone by shutting it down, or we can just pull out the battery. So let's see what could go wrong with pulling out the battery. So first of all, some phones, the battery is attached. For example, the iPhones or latest other phones, you cannot pull out the battery, or you cannot replace the battery. The other thing is, in some phones, accessing the battery is also very difficult. They are sealed packed, so you will have to kind of destroy the phone in order to get the battery. The other thing is, whenever you pull out the battery, all the date related information that might be stored in your phone, that will be overwritten or that will be lost. So if you guys remember, like we talked about CMOS. So do you guys remember CMOS in PCs? So CMOS like ran with a extra cell or with an extra battery that keeps the data safe, like related to time and other user settings. So in phones, if you plug out the battery, it will be similar to, just shutting down your PC. So the next time you turn it on by plugging in the battery back, some of the data will be overwritten or edited. The next way is by manually shutting it down using, the shutdown option on the phone. The issue with that is like whenever you shut down a phone, like maybe, like you can just press the power button, keep pressing it for a couple of seconds until it shuts down. The issue or the consequence of that is when the phone shuts down, it kind of, deregisters itself from the cellular network. So every time you turn on the phone, your SIM card or your phone will send message to the cellular network with your SIM card related IDs that we discussed in the last lecture, and it will register itself to the network that I am on, I am back again, and like provide me service. And every time you shut the phone off, it before shutting down, it will send some other messages deregistering itself or deregistering the SIM from the mobile network. All right. So if you turn off the phone, there is a very high likely chance that it will deregister itself from the network service provider. And whatever the last tower information and those things, that might be stored on the SIM card, they will be lost or they will be overwritten. Now, if you turn off the phone at the suspect location, you bring it to your office and turn it on again. Now your phone will again do the registration process with the cellular tower, and it will update all the location related information that it might have stored. So both of these issues, like, if you pull out the battery or turn it off, they have their consequences, or you can say drawbacks. So that's why it is very, very, very important that if the phone is on, try to make sure plug it, a charger while you are transferring the phone, and make sure that it stays on and it doesn't connect to any of the network services, or whether it's like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or the cellular network. So these are the different devices that you can use for radio frequency blocking. So these devices, they are called Faraday devices. So Faraday, what is Faraday? It is basically a container made from material which blocks the radio frequency. So you can see here, it is a special type of fabric. And with this fabric, you can create different type of bags, or you can say containers. So a lot of the time, all the digital forensic investigation people, they have these bags with them. And whenever they need to transfer your mobile phones or any other electronic device that might connect using the radio waves, they try to put them inside these Faraday bags or pouches, or you can also have big containers as well. So these are very important because we need to make sure that the connectivity of a phone to the network is blocked. One thing which is important to keep in mind here is that while you are transferring the phone, when you block the radio frequency on a phone, for example, I put the phone on in a Faraday bag, the phone will think that, I lost the connection to the cellular network provider. Somehow, maybe, there is something wrong with my receiver, because every phone has a receiver that receives the radio frequency, right? So what the phone will do is it will not understand that you have put it in a Faraday bag, or you are running a radio jammer. It will think that it is my issue. So what it will do is it will try harder to connect to that cellular network. So maybe, if the receiver was running or consuming, say, 80% energy in the normal state, it will pump up the energy in it, and it will try to consume more energy, like run that process rigorously, just to try to make sure that I connect to the network path. So because of this change in, the CPU capacity that now that process is using, trying to connect back to the network, there is a very high chance that when you are transferring a device, a phone, in one of these bags or one of these containers, it will take or it will consume more energy as compared to the normal operation. So whenever you are transferring, try to make sure that you plug in the phone with a charger and then transfer it from one location to another. So we can also use radio blocking devices. And as I mentioned, these devices, what they create is they create a bubble around a phone. For example, one device maybe provides, say, 1 feet diameter. In that, it will block all the radio frequency. So these are not like legal for all, everyday person or civilians to use them, but the law enforcement agencies, they do have that, and that is an alternative to the Faraday bags or Faraday containers. So the radio frequency, the specifications are mentioned in this slide. So these are the different frequencies in which these devices works. So if you talk about Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi has 3 different bands or 3 different frequencies in which it works. So you have Wi-Fi 2.5 and 3.6 and 5G or 5 gigahertz. So have you guys seen this in your routers that you use at your home, Wi-Fi routers? They provide you 2 different services, right? 2G or 5G. So basically, these are the frequency bands on which these devices operate. So if you block all the communication in these in the range, say from 2.5 gigahertz to 5 gigahertz, you block all the wave, then you will be blocking all the Wi-Fi connectivity. Similarly, Bluetooth works in 2.4 to 2.5 gigahertz, and your cellular phones, they have these frequencies. So some they run in 800 to 900 megahertz, some run in 17, 18, and 1900 megahertz. And this, by the way, is also different in different countries. So maybe in US, all the mobile service providers, they are running, say, services on 1900 megahertz frequency band, somewhere around it, plus minus 50. But maybe in, say, Europe or in China or in some other country, they are using, say, 900 or 800 megahertz. So whichever area you are in, and whatever frequency the service providers are using, you try to make sure that you are blocking that particular frequency range. All right. The next thing is asking for information. So once you have, preserved the phone, like put it in a Faraday bag, or, you are using a radio frequency jammer, the next thing is ask as many questions, collect as much information as possible. So anything about the phone, about the SIM, about the owner, who pays the bill, who bought the handset, who's the user, like sometimes what can happen is company can buy a phone and then it distributes it to their employees, right? Or they can buy SIM cards in a package and then they can distribute it to the employees for business purposes. So you have to collect all the information that who's the user and who's the owner, because both of them, like it is not always that the user is also the owner. Sometimes the owner and the user are different. So try to make sure that you collect all the information about the phone, the SIM, the network provider, the user, the owner, and everything else. Next, we have to seize all the hardware as well. So all the data cables, like the micro SD card readers, the chargers, the software CDs, or say other manuals that come with it, everything, all the data or hardware related to the phone, even if it is connected, or if you think that it might have been connected to a laptop or a computer, you have to collect or add that into your evidence list as well. So micro SD card readers, they are very important because sometimes, they can store information in themselves as well. So like there are some versions, or, you can say some models of SD card readers that when you are reading or transferring the data, they give you the capability or ability to store some data. They also act as USB as well. So you need to make sure that if there is a SD card reader that is, that also has the storage capacity, that you investigate that SD card reader as well. All right. And because they provide you the storage capability, it is also possible, like that one SD card is used to say, scan or read multiple SD cards. So in that particular case, there is a chance that, it is contaminated, or there might be some virus or some other, like malware in it. So do not just plug that thing right away in your computer, because there is a chance that your computer or, workstation can get infected. So we also have other devices. So for example, there are other specific hardware tools as well that can be used to read the memory of the phone, or that can be used to transfer, the phone data towards the computer. So we use them when we are doing investigation, like when we are trying to retrieve the data as well. So, but a suspect might also be using one of these devices, like such as they are called like flasher boxes. So they basically, like you can connect the phone with them and extract data like in a much better way, or you can say in much more depth as compared to simply extracting it using the SD card or using the data cable. Next is documents. So I've been like stressing on it. All the documents related to the phone, the packaging in which the phone arrives, the SIM card, the bill, everything you need to collect that as well. That is your step number 5. So now the next thing is transportation and storage. So one thing is sure, like is clear that you have to make sure that there is no communication whatsoever while you are transferring. And if the phone is on, it should stay on. What are the other, like there could be some other details as well, depending on your company's, like protocol. Maybe, like you need to put the phone in Faraday bags. Maybe you are using, say, radio frequency jammers, or like what are the other things or other protocols that you have to follow, like what are the documentations that you have to fill in order to move the phone from one location to another, the transportation medium, like how you are going to transfer the phone, the containers, everything. So these type of things, they vary from one organization to other. So some may be using Faraday bags, some may be using radio frequency blockers. So depending on your organization's rules and on your organization's protocol, you have to make sure that you are strictly following those protocols for the transportation. And if you don't know, or if there is no, like you can say guidelines for storage and moving from your company, you can always like go to the federal guidelines. So they are available at SWGDE. So you can find over there, if you go to the website, you will find the documentations on how to secure the phone and how to transfer the phone from one location to another. Now the next thing is, so now we have like secured the phone, collected all the evidence that we could, brought it to our workstation or our lab. The next thing is how we can analyze the phone, right? This is the last step in the whole forensic investigation. So there are basically 3 different ways in which you can examine the phone. The first one is manual analysis, or you just scroll the phone, try to go in all the folders, try to see the call logs, try to see the messages yourself. The second one is logical analysis. So in logical analysis, we use software similar to FTK Imager or, like Autopsy. So they are specifically built for mobile phone forensics. And what you do there is that you plug in the phone with the data cable and then use that software in order to extract as much data as possible from the phone. The last thing is physical analysis. So sometimes, the phone might be damaged or the data port might be damaged, or, there could be other password protection or other things as well. So in those cases, like in spare cases, we will do the physical analysis. And in physical analysis, there are multiple ways. So one is JTAG, other is chip off. The third one is micro reading. So we will like look into them one by one. This is the, you can say, pyramid, or you can say, like the sequence of investigation. So at the very bottom, we have the manual extraction. And then if the manual extraction doesn't work, then we can sort out or go with the logical. If that doesn't work, then we can use the JTAG. Then after that, we have the chip off. And lastly, we have the micro read. So all of these are different options with which we can extract the data from the phone. They all have different, you can say, difficulty level and different pros and cons, like, how much data we can retrieve from each of them. So as you go up on this pyramid or in this list, it gets like more difficult. You need more technical knowledge, you need better equipment or specific equipment to do that. So you guys can, like see that or guess that for manual extraction, you don't have to do anything. You just need to turn on the phone and then start, reading the messages, start seeing the photos, and manually doing all the investigation. Whereas in logical extraction, we would need some specific softwares in order to extract the information. Now, if the phone is like, if the data cable is not working or the port is blocked or there is password on the phone or some other issue that you are not able to use the data cable or transfer the data to your computer, in that case, we will be using the JTAG method or the chip off method. So the more like if you go upwards on this ladder, then the techniques, they become more specific and more difficult to do. So most of your forensic investigation will just lie on, the first 2 categories. In very severe cases, we will have to go into the using JTAG or the chip off method. And lastly, if like, there's, a plane crash or something like that, like everything is destroyed, in that cases, we will be looking for micro read. So we will go through them one by one. All right, so let's look at the first thing, manual extraction. So the process is that you review everything yourself. So, you scroll through all the folders, all the messages, photos, videos, all type of documents that you might see on the phone, one by one manually, and then note it down or, list down all the evidences. What are the pros or what are the advantages? The first advantage is it is very fast. It is easy to use. You don't have to, do anything. You don't need any specific software. You can just start doing or getting the file from it. What are the cons? The cons are, first of all, it is prone to errors, or, there is a chance, well, while you are doing all the investigation, exploring the contents of the phone, you might unintentionally update some of them. So for example, if I'm viewing or like looking at all the videos and all the photos on the phone, every time I open a phone, the access time or the metadata of that file will be changed, right? So while you are doing this investigation, there is a chance that you are, changing or you are like modifying the metadata. The other big issue is that we might also not get all the data. So what if there is some hidden file or, some deleted files that might exist but they are not in the plain view. So in that case, if we are just exploring, like a phone from the operating system, it will be similar to exploring a computer just from the my computer or file system. And as you guys know, like we cannot see deleted files, we cannot see hidden partitions. So all of that, those principles apply here as well. If you are just like doing it, the manual extraction, there is a chance that you will be missing some data or messing up with the data. Another thing is that, there might be like some malwares or some things in the phone, booby traps in the phone that you might unintentionally hit them. So for example, there might be a file, attached to a malware that if you open that file, like it will clear all the data on the phone. So while you are exploring the different files manually, there is a chance that you will unintentionally trigger that malware and the whole data will be destroyed. So for the manual analysis, even though it looks simple, it is not that simple. And you have to record all the steps that you are taking. So all the forensic investigators or law enforcement agencies, they have special tools such as Ramsey's STE or Project A-Phone. So what are these things? So as you can see in the photo over there, it is a box which is, blocks all the radio frequency and everything. And you have, if you guys have taken any bio lab in high school or, biochemistry lab, you might have done something similar to that. So you have like space to put your heads from here, and there is a camera that is recording all your evidence or all the process that you are taking. So you don't just randomly scroll through the phone. There is a camera that is viewing the screen all the time, and you keep that recording as evidence. All right. So manual analysis, even though it looks, very easy, but most of the time you have to record it, like make a video recording of it. Whatever you are doing, there should be evidence of it. And while you are doing it, you also need to make sure that there is no communication whatsoever. So all the, like network, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, everything is blocked. Next, we have the logical extraction. So the process is very simple. You connect the phone with a cable to a computer, and then you have special tools such as Parabens, device seizure, or sustained data pilot. So what are these tools? These are like FTK Imager or Autopsy. So you connect your phone with the PC, and then you run these tools on the PC, and these tools, what they will do is they will logically read all the data from your phone. So just like, you transfer your data from or photos from phone to, your computer using say iCloud or any, other service or other tool that the company provides, you can use these tools as well. And what they will do is they will extract all the data and then organize it just like you might have seen, like the autopsy images, right? So when you are forensically investigating hard drives using Autopsy, you see like it separates all the folders, right? Like the messages or say documents, softwares, deleted files. So these softwares will give you a very logical view of the mobile phone, and you will not have to manually go through or scroll through all those folders and files in order to retrieve the data. So pros and cons of this thing. So the pros are that it is fast, a lot of information is available, a lot of different tools are available to do this. Then you might have like, seen this issue in manual analysis, that if the phone is, say, in some other language, say French or Spanish or Arabic or any other thing that you don't understand, then the investigator might have some hard time in browsing the phone. But when you are extracting the data, that language barrier is gone now. Now you just extract the data and you can, like just scroll through it as you wish or as you like. The other thing is, like, it is also repeatable. So if you are doing manual analysis, it is very time consuming, and there is also a chance that two people might not perform or look into files the same way. But when we say about logical extraction, every time you extract the data, it's going to give you the same data all the time. So the process is repeatable, and anybody, like if the court or if the suspect doesn't agree with your analysis, they can give it to somebody else and they will, do the same process and find the same data. So what are the cons here? So the cons are, first of all, like, some messages or some like files can be updated. So it is very similar to reading the file. If you are copying them, some of their metadata will be updated. Deleted files, some of the time, like, cannot be extracted from these softwares as well, because most of the time these softwares just like extract whatever is in the user view. So depending on the capability of the software, some might provide you the capability to extract or read all the locations or sectors of the hard drive, phone's hard drive, and retrieve everything. Others might just provide you whatever is in the user view or the logical view. So next we have the physical extraction. So what is physical extraction? The physical extraction is that, when the phone screen is broken, the data cable or, the data pin is broken, and there is no way whatsoever to connect to the phone and extract the data. So in that case, what you will do is you will try to, like use some specific hardware such as JTAG, and then try to dump the memory from that. Now a question might come in your mind that what the hell is JTAG, right? So all the devices, like, or the chips that you see in your, computers, like your motherboard or your phone's motherboard, once the manufacturer has put in or placed all the individual components like your CPU, like, your RAM, your ROM, your storage on the motherboard or on the chip of the phone, next they need to do some debugging themselves. Like they want to make sure that all the devices, all these individual components, they are working fine and they can read and write data. So for that purpose, on your CPUs or on the chips, like, the PVC chips that you see in the devices, we have JTAG pins, and using those JTAG pins, like we can send commands to that JTAG pin, from JTAG pin to, say, the chip of your computer, and we can read or write the data through that as well. So if we have access or if we are able to identify the JTAG pins, we can communicate directly to the hardware, leaving the software altogether. So you are not using any operating system or, any file system. We are directly reading the data from the memory or, say, CPU or ROM by sending the signals using the JTAG. Another way is that if you like see, you guys might have done that. I did that when I was doing my undergrad, that you can extract the RAM or ROM from the chipset, right? You can do that, for example, if you are using a computer, you can extract computer's RAM or computer's hard drive, right? So you extract that and you then put it in specific software that gives you the ability to read and write the data within that particular RAM or within that particular ROM. So you can extract the chip and read the data directly from the chip, RAM chip, ROM chip, or the hard drive. Similarly, or another way, you can use hex as well, or sorry, JTAG as well, that rather than plugging those components out of the chipset or out of the motherboard, you can just use JTAG in order to communicate them and get the data out of them. So for physical extraction, these are the tools. So we have like RIFF box. So it is a specific tool. It gives you like, a specific hardware that you need to connect to your PC and then connect to your phone or whatever, like, chip that you are trying to read. So you have to first identify the JTAG pins on the chip. And once you have identified them, then you have to connect those pins to the specific hardware. Similarly, we have another tool, which is like UFED Touch Ultimate. So it is also a JTAG reader. So if you guys are interested in this topic, hardware reading or like how to do forensic analysis on hardware, this is actually a very hot topic these days for forensic analysis or, for the research community. So you can look into, just type JTAG reading or JTAG reader on Google, and it will give you all the hardware tools that you can use. All right, so what are the pros and cons of this? So the biggest pro is that since now we are directly reading from the memory, we can read all the locations, right? All the sectors that are there in the memory or clusters that are there in the memory. So what is the advantage? We can extract all the deleted files. So no matter if the file exists in the logical view or not, or in the file system or not, we will be directly reading the data from the chip itself. Another big advantage, like one of the biggest advantages, that sometimes you can, like bypass the security as well, because most of the security features that you see, they run on the software layer, right? So it is the operating system or the file system that might block you from accessing a file. But if you are directly reading the file from the memory itself, then there is no security component involved at that hardware level or the hardware layer. So that is another, like pro of using JTAG. Cons are that the first thing is that, since you are directly reading from the memory, you will not see like fancy pictures that you might see in the user view. You will be seeing bits, zeros and ones, and you will have to do the data carving, all the memory analysis that you guys did, RAM analysis. So you will have to do that type of analysis in order to extract some data. The next thing is like they can be like this whole process. To do that, you need to be very sound, you need to be very learned about this topic. So if you don't know how to work with JTAG or how to use JTAG, then you will not be able to extract the data. So it is not as easy as doing manual analysis or as easy as doing logical analysis. You will have to put in a lot of effort in order to extract the data. Next, we have the chip off process. So it is similar. So we want to read the data directly from the chip itself. So what we will do is we will extract the chip, say RAM chip or ROM chip or say hard drive chip out of the phone memory, and then use some external tool in order to read the data. So all these chips, the RAM, ROM, storage, they are very simple. Whenever you want to write a data, you have to give the address where you want to write the data. So there are pins to give the address and then the data itself. Similarly, to read it, we will do the opposite process. We will tell them the address from which we want to read and how much data we want to read. So if you can give these signals directly to the chip, you can retrieve any data that is stored on there. So you don't need to, do or use the operating system or file system to do that. So again, for this purpose, it is very hardware specific, acquisition method, and you need special equipment such as UP828, which is like a specific hardware that is used to, extract chips and read the data directly from chip. We have SD flash doctor, and there are also like, on top of that, once we get the data, it will be all in zeros and ones. So we will be needing some extra, like scripts or programs in order to get some sense out of that data or do all the data carving ourselves. So this is how it looks. You extract the chip, place it on the hardware, and then you can, plug that hardware into your computer, and then, send signals to the chip directly using that tool and read the data out of it. So pros for this one are the same as JTAG, that since you are like at the very bottom hardware level layer, you can extract all the hidden files, all the deleted files, and you will be able to get all the data. Cons are that it is very difficult, it requires hardware, it requires special training, and so on. All right. So the last is micro read. So what is micro read is that in very worst case scenarios where your chip is also destroyed, you can, manually read directly from the cells. So if you guys remember, we talked about, hard drive and solid state drive. So if you guys remember those cells which store data in the form of charge, so using specific microscopes, we can directly read the data, zeros and ones from the chip itself. Now you won't be doing these very, difficult methods for investigation all the time. They are like, 1 in a million cases, but still we have this technology as well that we can read data directly from the chip without even communicating with the chip. So we can use specific microscope or special microscopes to look at the individual cells. And if the cell is charged, we will put one there for, in correspondence. If there is no charge, that would mean zero. And in this way, zeros and ones, we can try to extract the data directly from the chip. All right. So this is like, these are the different levels. So you basically start with the manual extraction. That is your level one, most easy to do. Next is your level 2, which is where you do the logical extraction using specific softwares such as Data Violet. The third one is using the JTAG. So if you are unable to do that and you need to directly get the data from the hardware, the first thing or the first method to use for that purpose is using JTAG. If that doesn't work, try to extract the chip from the mobile phone, like all the memory chips, and try to read the data from them directly using some specific software, some specific hardware. And lastly, if the phone is, like completely destroyed and you are just left with a burnt, say, chip or a burnt RAM or ROM or hard drive, in that very severe cases, you can look into using the micro reading option, where you will have specific microscope that read the chip itself.